Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be talking about the brand new Godzilla film, a real Godzilla film, a film from the Japanese Toho Studios. This is, I think, the 33rd film in the Toho Japanese series. I think the 37th film overall, if you count the American ones, which I really don't, and other types of Godzilla films. But this film, Godzilla Minus One, was absolutely fantastic. Now, going into this, I'd heard nothing but good things from fans and critics about this movie. So I really had a really good attitude about it and really had the expectations high. So I went in, not only did I enjoy it very much once, I went today a second time, 2 days in a row, yesterday and today. And today I brought my girlfriend who loved it as well. I don't mind telling you. And I'm going to explain the reasons of why I love it and also the reasons why I'm really seriously considering thinking of this movie. Now, I'm not talking in terms of favorites, personal favorites. My personal favorite is probably the original 1960s King Kong versus Godzilla. If we're talking about favorites, childhood nostalgia. But if we're talking about the best Godzilla film ever made, it just may be this one. That's right, I'm saying it. That means it's even better than the 1954 original, Gojira. Now, I gave it some thought. I'll get into that later, maybe. If I remember, I'll probably forget. But right now, I'm thinking it's even better, or at the very least, just as good as the original from 1954. 70 years of Godzilla, we're talking here. All right, well, there is some detail that I got to leave out because it will be spoilers. So I don't want to give you spoilers, but I'll tell you other stuff, okay? First of all, I will say the special effects, absolutely incredible, okay? Now, I'm not a big fan of CG, you know that, computer graphic. If I like physical monsters, I didn't look at too much research to find out if any of this was a real guy in a monster suit or whatever, or if it was all CG or just some CG. All I know is it worked. When it works, and it worked. I mean, look, this is not 1954. This is not the 60s or 70s. This is 2023, and in particular, I think they made it in 2022, really, but, 2020s. And in the hands of Japan, fabulous job. Sometimes I think the Americans, from the American CGI films that I see, go really overboard. Too much mind-numbing action thrown at you every second. The Japanese know how to do it. Okay? So anyway, the effects were absolutely stupendous and second to none. Completely captivating, realistic, really, really awe-inspiring. I mean, just amazing. Okay? I can't say enough about the effects. In addition to these effects, they utilized the original music from Godzilla, and also the classic Godzilla theme march music is used to good advantage here. Really powerful the way they use it. Sometimes the old music, the old soundtracks are still the best, right? I think. And also some music was used from King Kong versus Godzilla, I believe, here and there, and maybe even the 2001 film, is it All Out Attack, I think is the name of that one. Look, my friends, people watching this, I can't say enough about this movie. Now, I just got in talking about how the effects are and the music. I'm sorry that I can't name the Japanese people involved because I don't want to mispronounce their names, to tell you the truth. That's why I'm not going to do that. But in addition to this movie being a really gut-punching Godzilla film, if you're a monster movie fan, if you're a Godzilla fan, if you like giant monsters, this delivers everything you could want. Godzilla on the Rampage. I mean, it's everything you could want here, right? So that's the first thing out of the way. Now, but I'm going to get into what I really liked even more about this movie as I talk. The actors in this film were great. The young leading actor, the young male actor, the young female actor, the two main leads in here, great. The characters in this film are interesting. You can get invested in them. You go along with what they're trying to do. You feel sympathetic for their plight. All right, so they really made the story believable. Now, even more than all the Godzilla monster stuff, what I especially liked was the story. Now, here's where, again, I'm going to give a salute to the Japanese filmmakers. Here in America, it seems to me that most of the time a film like this, bam, 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 action smashing you in the face, so much that I sit there and I go, oh. Nothing bores me more than mind-numbing action that doesn't end and has no story or anything. There is a story here, a human interest story. That is at the core of this. You know, Godzilla films, there's so much I have to say about Godzilla films in general. I don't know how much I can say here in this short video. I'm going to try to keep it short. It may go long. But when it comes to Godzilla films, to me, they're very limited in what they can do. You basically have Godzilla appears, Godzilla destroys the city, and they try to destroy Godzilla. They bring the tanks out. End of story. How in the world could they have made 30-something movies for 70 years with that minimalist approach? And I'll tell you how. You have to have, and as in the case here, interesting human characters that kind of gel with the monster goings on here too. So like I said, what really sets this film apart from all the others is you have interesting characters, an interesting story, very much emotion. Okay, this is a tearjerker. Yeah. And there's surprises. There's a few like things you didn't see coming here that kind of surprise you. And the second time I saw the movie, I knew what to expect. I was reaching for the Kleenex. That's right, I cried in a Godzilla movie. Very proud to admit it. Very happy that such a movie exists. And that's why this movie is doing so fantastic. It's not just the monster action, but it's the story, the human side of this thing. And I can't go into too much detail. I'll tell you a little bit about the story. It has to deal with, the story takes place in 1945. It starts during the last days of World War II. And, you know, when you have a Japanese kamikaze pilot, a young man who is very much afraid. He hasn't seen a lot of action. I don't think he's seen any action, really. And he does something in the beginning of the movie that kind of makes him feel guilty. And it's not too much of a reveal to say a monster appears in the beginning that was probably Godzilla, and he actually puts all his, we'll say, friends, you know, all the people he's with in jeopardy and danger because of his cowardice and his fear. And then the whole movie has this lead character with a case of post-traumatic stress disorder on steroids. This guy is completely blown away. He has nightmares. He can't sleep. His life is ruined because of what he did. And the story moves on a couple of more years. And I can't say too much because I don't want to ruin it, but he gets involved with a young lady and a young child, a little girl. And as the story goes on, you know, you have to see for yourself. There's a lot of heart-tugging moments. This is a serious Godzilla movie. This is not a silly Godzilla movie. I was saying earlier that one of the things they have to do to keep the series going for 70 years is they either had to make you invested in the human characters, which this does completely, or you have to have Godzilla come back in numerous films fighting a nemesis, another monster. So if you're going to do this, you can't just have the simple formula blah, blah, blah. Like I said, you have to have interesting side story with the human characters that somehow interweave with Godzilla. I mean, some of these, like 1960s and 1970s Godzilla movies, I love them. But there are situations there where the human characters are gangsters, bank robbers. They don't really, spies. They don't really have anything to do with Godzilla. Godzilla's over there, and they're doing this other story here. This story has an human interest story, but interweaves Godzilla perfectly. All right, and you care. Either that, or you just keep making films where he fights this monster and that monster and that monster. I've said this before. This is going to turn into a whole Godzilla series video instead of one film. But my feeling on the Godzilla films is that I didn't mind Godzilla after a couple of movies, after a few movies, becoming a good guy, a hero to children, and beating up the bad monsters. Because after a while, there's nothing you can do with a simple plot. So this film, what this film does is, which I guess you have to do, it's a complete reboot of Godzilla. This film operates as if no other Godzilla films ever existed. This is not a sequel. It's not a prequel. This is a brand new film, a rebooted Godzilla. And well, I'm not always a fan of that idea. When it works, it works. I liked when it worked in Casino Royale of 2016 for James Bond. I think it works here for this. I guess I can't say too much, but I was captivated completely enough to see this 2 times, right? Now, let me talk a little bit at the end here about the idea of when I was saying about the original Godzilla from 1954, Gojira. Actually, this film, by the way, I forgot to mention, is not presented dubbed in English. It's original Spanish language with English subtitles for Americans, English speaking people, and it's all the better for it because I've always liked the dubbed films. I grew up with the dubbed Godzilla films in the 60s and the 70s. And some of the charm in those 60s and 70s films is because they're dubbed. It's kind of like silly fun. They're fun, good-natured fun. This is dead serious, and I mean, there's some comical moments. You have a couple of comic relief moments here, but generally it's serious. And I think it's all the better for it that they didn't dub it, even though I don't have a problem with dubbing usually, but this really was better off left this way. But yeah, why do I think this film is the best Godzilla film of all right now? Again, remember, I'm not saying personal favorite. Among my favorite Godzilla films, King Kong versus Godzilla, Godzilla versus Mothra, the early Godzilla versus Mothra, Monster Zero, Invasion of Astro Monster. Those are among my favorites, and the original, of course, from '54. But if you want to talk about what I think is the best Godzilla film, and one of my favorites now, it is this, Godzilla -1. I think it's better than the original. Better film. And the only reason I say that, I think, is, and I hate to admit this, but it's true. Today, they can do a film like that much better. And I don't know, actually, clean your ears out and go, hit yourself in the head if you actually can't believe I'm saying this. Now, I don't say this, I'm gonna save a little face here. I don't say this with regard to U.S. films. Again, I said at the beginning, this is because the Japanese know how to do it right. Japanese films know how to make a story with just enough action, just enough good effects, without overdoing it, and just able to have the human story work of interest too. Okay? So, the effects in the original 1954 Gojira, let's face it, they're not as good as these effects. They're fantastic for 1954. They were great. Trend-setting, started a whole new thing. But these are better. For example, in the original film, there's a scene in 1954 where Godzilla, let's just say, attacks a train. And there's a scene in this new movie from this year where Godzilla also attacks a train again. Much more believable, frightening, scary, involving than the '54 version. So, it's already gone too long, this video. What I'm going to do to end it here is to tell you, I may do a series longer on this where we talk about the original film versus the new one. The reason I think it's the best as of this moment right now anyway is because the lead characters are very, very involving, very good, very well acted, and very much a part of the story. Although they were in the original '54 Gojira, they don't have as much chemistry. They just don't. They do it. You can tell yourself all you want. They don't have as much chemistry as this couple does. They didn't show you as much back then. And the fact that all of the effects are so much more powerful now. The effects are so much more powerful now. They're so much more realistic now. They're so absolutely awesome, as they say, where they couldn't really do that when you watch the original Gojira. The one thing that runs between the original '54 Gojira and the new Godzilla -1 is, the sense of hopelessness and destruction, and in some ways, the depression, the unpleasantness, the grimness of it all, that's so powerful in the original Gojira from '54. It is also retained here. So you have that too. So you have the three main things that worked for the original '54 film and this, all three of the things, the effects, the music, make it fourth thing, the music, which is here too, and the character interaction, generally the state of the grimness of it all. It retains all that, but does it better. And that's it. My overlong comments on Godzilla -1. On a scale of 4 stars, I give it a full 4 out of 4 stars.